Today on Locked On Canadiens, we have one final weekly forecast before the regular season starts, and we've got some lineup changes to talk about.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by Ian Boisvert, my wonderful co-host, also known as Maybe It's Ian. Ian, we're getting down to the home stretch. We are, at the time that you're listening to this, we are 8 days away from the puck dropping on the regular season against Toronto. How are we feeling?
We're feeling good. Look, the Canadiens preseason camp, their training camp roster starts with like 80 players. And we're down to 34 players. Just still too many players. But we're getting there, right? We are getting there. There's a couple. There were more cuts. Like it was kind of annoying. As soon as we like posted the last episode, the Canadiens were like, oh, by the way, here's a bunch more cuts. So we'll talk about those. So they're getting there, but it's I gotta say, I was pretty surprised to see some of the lineup changes that surfaced at practice. We'll see what ends up sticking, but lots to chew on today as we're headed into the final week of the preseason.
Yes, absolutely. So let's start with those cuts. I don't think there were very many surprises. I was surprised that they didn't do them all in one round. I guess they did the like non-waiver players the night before, but no, Sean Farrell is not waiver eligible. I couldn't figure out what the logic was behind that. Like they made some cuts right after the Toronto game, and then they made some cuts on like Saturday afternoonish.
I wonder if they like sensed the temperature around the league and saw when everybody was going to be putting guys on waivers to see if they could just sneak some guys through.
Yeah, like
I'm
flood the
wondering
market.
maybe if that's what happened.
Yeah, flood the market so people aren't looking at your guys, which was pretty smart.
Exactly.
There are guys on there that were like, I think Lucas Condado was up there. And Alex Belzile for sure. Sean Farrell was part of the cuts. So it looks like the Canadiens just really want a second look at only a handful of players, right? To me, I really think that, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later as well. Like, but who do you think, if you're the Montreal Canadiens and you're looking at this team, who's the one guy you pick between Kapanen and Florian? We're going to have this conversation every day until they do it. So,
and I have the benefit of being able to base this off of what we saw in practice. It's going to be Kapanen if that's the case.
Yeah.
And I think that's the right move. If you had to pick, look, I think from a fan perspective of the things I want to see a guy be able to do on the ice, I think that's why we keep leaning Florian.
Yes.
In that debate, but I think it's interesting that Kapanen continues to stay in these conversations, even though he is also eligible to be sent down to Laval without going through waivers. I found what Marty said after practice interesting. He was asked about Florian Xhekaj, and what he has to do to make the team or something to that effect. And I'm paraphrasing here, but Marty said, even if he doesn't win that spot now, that race is ongoing. Right? The league keeps going. He has always said the league keeps going. So like, if you're Florian Xhekaj and you lose this race, go down to Laval, have a great camp there, see what happens. Right? I think that almost puts him in a stronger position because then he gets to go to a level where he knows he can play well and put himself in a position to continually be in the Canadiens' ear. Like, hey, I'm still here. Same thing with Owen Beck. If Owen Beck were to not make it, right? Whereas Oliver Kapanen has if he makes the team, he's going to be in a tougher spot to perform. You made it because you deserve to be there, but that's a harder job to keep.
You have more to live up to.
Exactly. So I wonder, I don't think any of this is permanent. I kind of wonder if what we've seen in the past on defense kind of makes its way to the forward position, where we have a rotating cast of guys going down to the American Hockey League and a guy coming up and getting a couple games and then going back down. I think when it comes to like Owen Beck and Florian Xhekaj and Oliver Kapanen, that's okay. You can do that. Maybe even was part of that rotation, although I kind of doubt it at this point. Like, can you come up, show us something? Okay, we're going to try somebody else now. They're just going to keep cycling guys in. The problem is that right now, Kapanen is on a line in practice, and we'll talk about this later, with Owen Demidov. So it's sort of like, can you afford to cycle guys in that spot? It'll be fascinating to watch, especially as we look into our weekly forecast at these final 2 preseason games against the Ottawa Senators.
Anyone you like? I think anyone they should have sent down prior to this.
No, I think everybody that's left. I mean, maybe Kakkonen, but it's never a bad thing to have another goalie in camp.
Yeah.
Maybe Engstrom. It looks like Strubal's just going to be the extra. So, I mean, you could feasibly, I think, send Strubel down, but why would you? Like, it's a valuable piece to have in the National Hockey League.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm comfortable with where they're at now. I'm just hoping that and we'll talk about this in the forecast. I'm hoping that we get to actually get 2 tune-up games at the end of the season, instead of last year's mutually assured destruction that we saw between Montreal and Ottawa, where it came to the last game and both teams were like, we're just not going to ice anybody. Or we're quitting on the preseason. We're punting until game 1 of the regular season.
Yeah.
I would hate for that to happen for a second consecutive year for both Ottawa and Montreal, right? Like, there's a lot riding on both those teams. For them to both decide to do that again, I think would be a mistake on both their parts. They need to tell both teams need to talk to their dudes and tell them to behave.
Yeah, I think so. Particularly for me, because I get to go to that game. So I don't want anything boring or flat, or I don't want to go to a hockey game and just watch a brawl.
Yeah.
I just want to see the hockey. I've missed these guys. Like, brawls are well placed in different times. I think for me overall, if I could sum it up, I'm no closer to what I think their forward core is going to look like, and I know we're going to talk about lineup changes a little bit later, than I was at the beginning of the preseason, because I think other than Roy, these are all the guys I thought that would be here at this time, right? Engstrom is there, Beck and Kapanen and Florian. Like, those are the guys. Like, I was expecting those guys, right?
Yeah. And you have to tip your cap to those guys, right? Because they have not made this decision easy. Yeah. They've all had good. Who made the decision easy? Joshua Waugh. Unfortunately, he made that decision fairly easy for the Canadiens. Like, he just didn't put in enough. He was outdueled by those other guys, Kapanen, Xhekaj, and Beck. He was outdueled by those guys. So, like, they've made this conversation challenging for the Canadiens, which is all those guys want. Like, Marty, after practice today, talked about the options that he has. Like, he has so many options now because these guys have all shown that they are at least capable of playing NHL minutes at this point. They all can't. That's the unfortunate aspect of this. But they can all do it. So it's just a matter now of how you deploy those guys in the final couple games. Like, if I'm looking at this and I'm trying to determine who's making this team, like, do you just roll out a line in one of these preseason games, like we saw at practice, which was Blais, Beck, and Xhekaj, and then you have Kapanen with Newhook and Demidov, just to see, like, we have to put all of you in. We have to make a decision soon.
Yeah.
Like, I think you just need more information, right? You want one more chance. And I really want to see all of those players in that situation. They know that the difference between an NHL salary and an AHL salary is quite vast.
It's coming up.
It's a big incentive for them to play their hearts out in these last couple of games. I'm very excited to see what those guys are able to do.
I agree with you. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in our forecast right up next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during the games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, we've got the weekly forecast coming up, or right now. Actually, this is our last one of the preseason, and then we go into regular season games. And I think like the biggest game, sorry, the biggest game. You were just talking about more information, right? We need more information about these players. And I think the biggest thing is that they're playing, this is their second to last preseason game, I believe, for both teams. They're playing at in Quebec City. Ottawa is the home team. It's a huge deal. I'm sure they have been instructed by the NHL to make the game interesting and not just only play AHLers. At this point, both teams have made enough cuts that they're not just doing that. So we're setting up two Sens games. I think the best thing to do is not just roll out a line like we're going to talk about in our third segment. I think like you look at like Ottawa's a pretty tough team, right?
Yep.
They've got some pretty challenging forwards to play with. And I think you put those guys out against those guys and see who gets caught defensively, who gets caught flat-footed, who, like that's to me the ultimate test. I don't know. Maybe you disagree.
Yeah, I think, and looking at the forward lines that Ottawa's going to roll out on Tuesday, I kind of am curious what the Canadiens are going to try to do, because you look at the lines for Ottawa, no Stutzla, no Kachuk. You've got Perron, Cousins, Zetterlund at the top. That's Dylan Cousins down the middle on the top. Nick Cousins, Pinto, Amadio, Lixell, Halliday, Kaliev, and McEwen, Jenik, Hodgson on your fourth line. So like, it's not their full complement of players, but those top two lines are NHL lines.
Yes.
That's probably your second line for Ottawa on the first line, and probably your third or fourth line on the fourth line. It depends on where they put the Eller line. By the way, not playing Eller in this game. Come on, let's we're gonna get it eventually. It'll probably be that Saturday game that you're at. Look, I think I want, because Marty said that after practice, everybody that participated in practice on Monday, the 29th, was going to Quebec City. They're at least traveling, which means he doesn't know what the line, or at least he doesn't want us to know what the lineup is yet. And maybe he hasn't made a decision on who's playing, or at least he doesn't want to tell everybody what that is. With that said, the Canadiens will have a better lineup than what Ottawa is putting out, right? Like Ottawa's not playing most of the guys that they would play in the NHL. So I really hope we're not looking at a repaint of last year. I will reserve judgment until we see that. But again, like, that was detrimental to both teams. Both teams were dealt a blow by that turning into a sideshow. So I'm cautiously optimistic that cooler heads will prevail here. I feel like Zach McEwen has been an Ottawa Senators since they were an expansion team. So like, I don't know what we're getting from. I know that's not true, but I don't know what we're getting at a lot of, seeing what guys like him are going to do in the preseason. I didn't see the defense. I didn't see who's coming in goal for them. But you'd have to imagine that the second game, the Saturday night game in Montreal, that's going to be the dress rehearsal game. So, assuming that, there's no international incidents on Tuesday night, we can sort of expect that on Saturday night.
So I keep saying yes today. I don't know what it is. I just, like, every time you say something, I'm like, yes. I'm in agreement for most of it. So let me ask you this. Are the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens in any iterations able to meet in a game without trying to murder each other?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're capable of it. I do want to say that, I've been putting a lot of emphasis on who the Senators are going to play. That might be a 2 Xhekaj game.
Yeah.
And that's something that the Canadiens would be making a conscious decision to do. which is challenging. There was a point last preseason where they wanted to play both Xhekajs in the same game, and then before the game started, they pulled one of them from the lineup.
Yeah.
Like this happened last preseason. So
because they were worried about they were worried about a sideshow.
I'm hoping that those two get a nice chat from the folks in the front office and behind the bench, and they tell them, we don't want you to change who you are. Go out and be Xhekajs. Go do that. But if you could pretty please, just, if you have a chance to lay someone out at center ice, maybe just bump them. Maybe just knock them over. You don't need to crush them. I wonder how much of that takes place behind the scenes, because it's tough. It's why I fundamentally disagree with preseason exhibition games for contact sports like hockey, because you're asking these guys who get from game 1 to 82, it's their job to inflict physical punishment on their opponents.
Yeah.
And then we get into a game where none of it matters. And we're all just trying to get through it to the next game. And it's like, well, do I take my foot off the gas? Because then I look silly.
Yeah.
Like then a guy goes around me and then I get angry and then I take it out on somebody.
Yes.
Like I find that this whole exercise is really a challenge when it comes to, figuring out what these hockey players are going to be good at this year and what they need to work on. I will always have that issue. It's right in the NFL, like your quarterback might see 2 full quarters of preseason action. I think the NFL preseason is 4 weeks long.
Yeah.
Like 4 games.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. They don't play everybody. They barely play any of the starters. So like this is why.
And I fully agree with you. I think one of the things is that, like you're saying, like you ask them to go full throttle the entire year, and then you tell them take your foot off the gas, and they're not capable of it. But also, like, I wouldn't mind if they lay somebody out at center ice. I just don't want them to get like caught up in the retaliation part of it.
Well, right, but that's the thing, right? You lay someone out at center ice in a preseason game, and everyone goes, "What the heck are you doing? It's a preseason game." And now the temperature is elevated. It's one of those games last year against the Senators where there were some high hits. They were coming across the blue line. They were hitting guys up high. Like I think of the Oliver Kapanen hit on Tim Stützle, right? He got tossed for that hit. He didn't get a suspension. They didn't suspend him for that because it probably in the regular season. Well, they don't differentiate between preseason and regular season suspensions, but like it didn't rise to the level of, well, this was too much. It's just that it was too much for a preseason game. It was stupid. Why are you doing stupid things? This is what I'm trying to I'm hoping that they're able to avoid on Tuesday and Saturday night is the stupid preseason things.
Why are you doing? Because I think the temperature too is going to start at 4 billion degrees, right? Just between these two teams, it doesn't really matter. Whatever level they're at, they're always trying to kill each other, right? If there were a super league that was above the NHL level and both of these teams made it, they would still be trying to kill each other, which is why I'm very nervous about them meeting in the playoffs. But speaking of the weekly forecast, there are 2 games. We're both against the Ottawa Senators. Let me tell you what's coming up later this week. Obviously, tomorrow, our episode will be recapping that preseason game and any changes the Habs make after that. And then our Wednesday episode is going to be a crossover episode with myself and possibly Ian and Game Over Ottawa. Our good friend Maud is coming back, so we're very excited about that. And then we have, as always, our mailbag episode, which is coming up on Friday. So we've got some cool stuff. So make sure you're subscribed to this podcast. But first, we got to talk about these lineup changes. What was Marty cooking in practice today? And what are we going to see for the rest of the week? And what are we going to see in the regular season? All that's coming up in just one moment. All right, let's get into it. Oh, by the way, also, I know what the trivia question of the day is, and Ian was in his element when he wrote it. So stay tuned for that one. All right, earlier today, I was just living my life, probably doing my job. And then all of a sudden, in our group chat, we we got an update on the lineup. Can I just say, like, this comes from, I want to say it was Stu Cowan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of the Montreal Gazette. And here is the lineup. This is the forward lines, right? Were there any changes to defense that you saw?
No, there's none. I have the official Canadiens lines. They
Go for
posted
it.
them after practice as
Go
well.
for it.
Yeah, so no changes to the defense. So Matheson, Dobson, which by the way, Dobson and Goalie are back at practice in regular jerseys. So it seems like those injuries were quite normal and were just, hey, I tweaked something in a preseason game, get me out of here, which is fine. So Matheson, Dobson, Goalie, Hudson, Xhekaj, Carrier, and Struble, Engstrom skating as the extra pairing. And then at forward, Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, no change there. The now second line is listed as Boldic on the left, Doc down the middle, Laine on the right, followed by a third line of Kapanen on the left, Newhook down the middle, and Demidov on the right. Gallagher, Anderson, and Evans, I guess, did not skate, and they probably won't go to Quebec City. So we probably will get that line of Blais, Beck, and Xhekaj in that next game. Let's talk about the two changes, though. They swapped two players. They also swapped sides. So Laine was on the left, and now Boldic moves up to his spot on the left, and Laine goes to the right. So instead of having, their sticks in one-timerable positions, they're now on their natural wings.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that line first. Boldic, Doc, Laine. What's your first thoughts when you're thinking of that line?
I'm thinking, why did you take the meat off of it? That's my big question. But I think it's interesting. I think this is a chance for them to see what Boldric's really got, right? Like, how offensively gifted is he? Maybe he's not a default third liner, but at the same time, like, why are you moving Demidov down? Is it maybe to play him less minutes against the Goons?
Maybe. I'm curious whether or not this is a I'm making this change because I think this experiment is not going well, or I'm making this change because, like Marty said, I have all these options. I want to test all my options. I will say I like the idea of Boldic on a line with a goal scorer like Laine and a setup guy like Doc because he's a puck retriever, right? His whole thing was that he wanted to be a forechecker. He wants to be a guy that gets down low and uses his body to free things up. That's a very big line now. So I am curious though, just like how many times are we going to reshuffle the deck here and realize that maybe Doc and Laine just don't work together or at all? Like I that's the nuclear option. I don't want to hit that button yet.
Yeah.
But like, how many more wingers are we going to give them
I
before we
don't know.
realize it just doesn't work?
I don't know that they don't work though yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yet, for sure.
Yet.
And I think that this is just a good opportunity to see, like, okay, can this line be better than what we had built before? But if this doesn't work, there's not many more guys you're going to be able to give that line. You know what I mean? Like, they're just, like, yes, Marty has options, but it would mean like scratching somebody to make sure somebody can play with Doc and Laine, which they're not going to do. So I'm curious there what all of that means. I will say this just continues our this continues our annual tradition of making sure Alex Newhook has the shiny new toy at training camp. Because now, look, like he was either going to get Boldic, shiny new toy, or Demidov, who's not so much new. We've seen him play in a Canadiens jersey, but like
He's still the shiny new toy.
he's still the shiny new toy.
Yeah.
Let's move to that line. What makes you think? What do you think makes Marty think that line will work? Kapanen on the left, Newhook down the middle. Although you could interchange those two because Kapanen can play center and win faceoffs if they're on the right side, and then Demidov on the other side.
I was actually surprised they didn't do that. I was surprised they didn't put Newhook on the wing. Sometimes I just want them to put Newhook on the wing. He tries so hard. He works so hard, but I want them to put Newhook on the wing. I think it's not the way I would have gone. Right? I don't know that Demidov is getting the opportunities to shine that he would have otherwise. I think that's my main concern. I don't know, I don't know that is Newhook the one that brings out the best in Demidov?
I think Newhook's the fastest player on the team, and I think that will help Demidov. I think it was going to be difficult and will be difficult if they go back to this for Demidov to play with pace with Dach and Laine with him. Yes, Laine looks better speed-wise, definitely on his skates. He's able to cut a little bit better. He's not a burner. He never was. Dach looks a little bit faster than we saw last year, but like that's not a great. It wasn't a great baseline to compare to. I want to see Newhook get an offensive weapon like this and see if we can finally figure out what this guy is, because I've liked Newhook at the dot since he got to Montreal this offseason. You know, I liked his work in the faceoff circle. I think that can work.
Yeah.
And I think he's feeling some pressure from Joe Veleno, who's also picking it up in the faceoff circle.
And
So
talking about it, Joe Veleno showed up and is like, I know that's how I can differentiate myself. So
yeah,
he
no,
was,
that's what he recognized as, like, this is a way I can make the Montreal Canadiens is by
yeah.
winning faceoffs. So it's definitely interesting. I think the X factor on that line for me is Kapanen, in the sense that I don't know what he brings to that line. You know, can he be the puck retriever and get in deep and go get it? Or is that line going to be strictly we're going to score on the counterattack and we need Kapanen to pick the puck off and get us going the other way?
Exactly. I think that's what the thinking was there.
Yeah.
Because I
Which,
really,
like, hey, cool. That's fine. Like, if that's your plan for that line, be ready. I hope you're ready to play some defensive minutes, because you're going to have to know how to do that to take the puck away and go up the ice.
yeah,
I have no questions with that line's ability to go north-south. None. Like Newhook's a burner. Kapanen can move pretty good. Demidov can move pretty good. Like, I'm not worried about that.
it's the puck retrieval aspect.
Yes, it's, Marty always has said before that the point of defending is to stop defending.
Yeah.
That for that line is especially true. The point of defending is to stop doing it so that you guys can catch them off guard and go the other way. So it'll be interesting. I think what's fascinating is that, and we didn't see the power play in this practice, I don't think, but I can't imagine the power plays changing, because Dach, Laine, and Demidov can still work in a power play type scenario where they're buried in the offensive zone and they're able to make plays from static positions and sort of diagnose the penalty kill against them and let like Demidov's skill take over. But I think even if this is not a permanent change to getting away from Demidov with Dach and Laine, it's at least a taste that the Canadiens might not think that that's long term. Yeah. I mean, both Laine and Dach are on expiring contracts, right? We can't forget that.
This is true.
So, Boldic isn't. They're hoping to keep him around. I think his contract is expiring, but he's an RFA. Newhook his contract is up in a couple of years, but like he's hoping to make inroads with being a long-term Montreal Canadian. So is Kapanen, right? He's still on his entry-level deal. So, like, I think the point here is to just get more information, to figure out where these guys can play. It might not look great to see Demidov rolled out on the third line, but when he's getting good penalty power play minutes, who cares? And if that line works at 5-on-5, who cares? Maybe that line will take some of the defensive pressure away and leave a line uncovered, like Laine and Dach and Boldic, to go in and wreak havoc. Remember, like, there's only so many ways you can match up against another team.
Exactly.
So, Carey, I'm really like, this is sort of like this part of the year is like candy for me, because I'm just like, ooh, that's really interesting. Like, I love Patrick Laine, but I still understand that, like, it makes a lot of sense to try some different things out. I'm excited to see what Boldic can bring in that situation. And while that line is listed as the second line, maybe it's deployed as the third. Like Marty has a history of doing that, where he's like, this is our second line. Okay, then why did it have 5 more minutes than the line that you said was or 5 fewer minutes than the one you said was the third line, right? Like, that's a reality.
Yeah. And that's why, like, you did most of the talking this episode, because I know this is like your favorite kind of conversation. Let's hit our trivia so we can get out of here. And like I said, tomorrow our episode is a recap of the game, and then on our Thursday morning episode will be crossover with Game Over Ottawa. We're very excited to set up the season. Very different than the time we did it last time, because this time the Canadiens are better than expected. So it's gonna be a really fun conversation, and then obviously our mailbag episode. But first, let's do trivia.
Yep, let's hit it. So yesterday's question was about backup goalies. We've talked a lot about backup goalies last week. How many cup-winning goalies has Carey Price shared the net with? The stipulations here is that Price must have appeared in a game for the Habs in the same season as the other goalie, and the other goalie could have won a cup at any time, whether that was before coming to Montreal or after he left. So did you have the answer to this one, Laura? Do you remember?
Yes, the answer was 3.
Yeah.
Jake Allen before he came
Yep.
to Montreal.
Yep. The one with the
Antiniemi,
Blues.
yeah,
Anthony Niemi.
Antiniemi
Yep.
before he came to Montreal. And Cristobal Huet after he left Montreal.
Yep. And Niemi and Huey both won with the Chicago Blackhawks.
Chicago.
So yeah, it's very sad that a net that featured Carey Price, if there was a cup that was won, it was not him. I just find that to be cosmically unfair. Super Rain had that one, right? Of course, as always. So we'll move to this next question, which is goalie centered, but also Oliver Kapanen centered, because it looks like he's well on his way to making the Montreal Canadiens. So if the last name Kapanen seems familiar, that's because it is. Oliver Kapanen is cousins with Kasperi Kapanen, current Edmonton Oiler, who you saw play in the Stanley Cup final last year, meaning his uncle is Sammy Kapanen. Sammy Kapanen was a small winger who played over 800 NHL games. Sammy Kapanen never played for Montreal, but he had his first ever 2-goal game against Montreal when playing for the Hartford Whalers as a rookie. Which 2 goalies did Kapanen score on in this 5-3 win for the Whalers? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Shout it to us any way you know how. We'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show.
And don't forget, it is, like I said, mailbag episodes coming up on Thursday. So you can send your trivia questions, you can send pictures, you can send, stories, you can send all kinds of stuff, but especially mailbag questions to lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com or Locked On Canadiens on Blue Sky, Locked On Canadiens on TikTok, Locked On Canadiens on Instagram. We love hearing from you guys. We love talking to you guys. So please send us your questions. Also, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. The season's about to start. It's going to be a really, really fun one. We're going to talk about so much stuff. Tell your friends, rate us, review us, all of that kind of stuff. And do not forget, my co-host is on social media at Maybe It's Ian. I am on social media at maybe at the Active Stick. I'm not at maybe the Active. I am the Active Stick. I don't know. I've claimed this username on pretty much every platform. I am the Active Stick. So you will find us. And we want to thank you all so much for listening. And we will be back tomorrow.